Hi everyone, as you're hopping on, go ahead and pop in the chat where you're from, what TCU you represent, what reservation you're on, or tribe you represent. We're going to get started here in a couple minutes as people are hopping on. Here's a little slide for what you can pop in the chat. Like I said, where you're from. Are you affiliated with a TCU, a 501c3? And then what comes to mind when you hear cultural foodways is another thing you can pop in the chat for us. Thanks everybody for joining. We're just waiting a couple minutes. We had quite a few more registrants, so gonna give them time to hop on.
And thank you to those who have commented in the chat. We have folks from White Earth Tribal and Community College in Minnesota, Bay Mills Community College in the Great Lakes area. We have representatives from Alaska, Nebraska, Michigan. And one of the ways that we think about cultural foodways brings us back into ceremony and to who we're intended to be. Thank you for that, Tara John. Northwest Indian College from Washington represented. Thank you all for making time to be with us today.
We're going to wait about one more minute, then we'll get started. Thank you all again for joining us.
Calling attention to Emily's note in the chat. Thank you, Emily. Cultural foodways is to me an active relationship with land, water, air, fire, people, creatures, languages, ceremony, traditional ecological practices, matriarchal teachings, trade routes, and etc. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you all for popping those in the chat. We're going to get started. Hi everyone, welcome to our third webinar of our Cultural Foodways 2024 RFA series. You can continue to pop things in the chat if you've hopped on later. Where you're from, are you affiliated with a TCU, and what comes to mind when you hear Cultural Foodways. Otherwise, we're going to get started. Hi, my name is Riley Dizatel. I'm an enrolled member with the Colville Tribes in Washington State. I'm actually an associate grants officer with the Native American Agriculture Fund. but so help support the staff here at Sovereign Equity Fund. I'm excited to present this to you all today, and alongside with my team work in this space, and excited to hear you guys' questions. I'm going to pass it to Carly.
Thank you, Riley. My name is Carly Moore. I am from the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. I grew up on a family farm there, and I'm now in my third year of a PhD program around environment and resources. I live in Palo Alto, California, while I'm attending Stanford University. I, before graduate school, worked for the Native American Agriculture Fund, and it's a pleasure, an immense pleasure to support the Sovereign Equity Fund and the Cultural Foodways Fund. I'd also like to call out our executive director at SIF, Courtney Chavis, who's not on the call today, but came aboard just about 6 weeks ago and is a resource for all of us in this work. And also like to recognize our colleague, Lucas Sherrill, who's here on the call and also works at NAF and supports the team at SIF. Back to you, Riley.
Thanks, Carly. Yes, we're excited to have such a great team, especially being led by Miss Courtney Chavis. She's great and is available for anybody who has questions. Okay, so how to ask questions during this webinar. Please submit the questions you have via the question and answers box. We will do our best to answer all the questions in the time you submit them. So Carly will be monitoring those when I'm presenting and vice versa. And then any additional resources will be provided following the Q&A session for those who are not able to get their questions answered today. So if there's anything we can't answer, we will do our best to get back to you in a timely manner once we get that question answered. Okay, so a little background on the Cultural Foodways Fund. It is one of Sovereign Equity's initiative. It's a funding opportunity for tribal colleges and universities that provide capital and capacity building to expand the knowledge of arts and humanities of Native food systems. So the mission of the Cultural Foodways Fund is to promote the study, practice, and the recognition of Indigenous food and agricultural knowledge at TCUs and create platforms that celebrate community-led, culturally appropriate ways of sharing that knowledge with community members and other members of your TCU. The Sovereign Equity Fund is a sister organization of the Native American Agriculture Fund and designed to accelerate investments in Indian country agriculture and food systems. So this is in partnership with the Mellon Foundation as well, and we're excited to have this opportunity for you guys. So a little side note, if you've had experience applying for the 2023 Cultural Foodways request for applications, you're going to hear very similar information. There has not been any major changes from last year's application, so just a little heads up on that. Sweet. So as we get into the overview section, the lead applicant for the 2024 RFA, must be a TCU or a foundation under TCU control. You can find the official list of TCUs as recorded by AIHEC in our RFA overview, which is on our website. Our RFA overview, we will be referring to that quite a bit throughout this presentation, so we encourage you to find that resource on our website, and it is also linked in our application as well. To be considered the lead applicant, an entity must serve as the project lead or key personnel for the project. They must have oversight of the budget and also be the primary contact with Sovereign Equity Fund throughout the duration of the grant. Also getting into the primary lead as well, must be a TCU. I'm stumbling on my words today. They may also choose to partner with other entities, including 501c3 organizations, educational organizations, and tribal governments. Some examples of arts and humanities that we like to include are creative writing, music, language, photography, and storytelling. There will be 6 grants awarded in this round of applications, and every grant must total must equal a total of $200,000. And that will be a project for funding over 2 years. Carly, I think we have a question. If we applied last year but were not chosen, can we receive feedback on how to improve our application this year?
Thank you for asking that. Yes. So we offered the opportunity after the decisions came out, and we still have that information, but we ask that you reach out to us soon so that we can schedule time to share that feedback.
Yes, and you can reach out to us at via email at grants@sovereignequityfund.org. The contact information will be at the end of this slide, but I will also pop it in the chat real quick. Give me a second to do that. This email is also the best email to reach out for any questions after this webinar, for anything regarding requirements, the application, foundant support, anything. So please save that email if you have any questions. On to our next slide. So Cultural Foodways is meant to expand knowledge of the arts and humanities of native food systems, also to promote the study, practice, and recognition of indigenous food and agriculture knowledge at TCUs. So at CEF, we use Cultural Foodways as a means to describe the relationship between arts, humanities, and agriculture. We want our applicants to encompass these factors into their projects in a way that broadens the scope of native food and agriculture systems. However, we do leave it up to you as the applicant to determine what that means for your tribal communities. We know that every community is different, from Alaska to Florida. We know that every form of agriculture means something different. So we do leave that up for you to determine what that means. Okay, I am going to, pass it over to Carly.
Yep. Thank you, Riley.
Yeah.
So it's really important to us to tell you how we will be evaluating your applications. And we have 6 criteria. These are spelled out in the request for applications overview in more detail, and happy to go into more detail if we get questions on that. It's out of 100 points, and you can see that these points are divided among these topics. First, and I see we have a question in the chat. So let me go ahead and do the question. Is this a continuation from the first one in April? Do you mean, is the webinar a continuation? Yes, so we have 4 webinars and they're all the same. So if you attended one in March or April, you're going to hear the same information, but there may be different questions that come up. Thank you for that. Okay, so the evaluation criteria, we'll go through them. We have vision. The vision is worth 20 points. This asks the question, what is your overall view of cultural foodways in your community, in the groups that you're working with? What is the place that you want to get? What's your vision for the future? Contribution says, okay, now we have this grand plan. What is your piece of that pie in the next 2 years with $200,000? What can you do from fall 2024 to fall 2026 to contribute to that vision? Plan is your plan for the contribution. So tell us the steps, the important steps that will have to happen, and team is who are the important people that will be involved. And please use this as an opportunity to share about all the facets of your team that will influence their work here, including their education and their professional experience, but especially their knowledge of cultural foodways and their connection to the community. Our last two are longevity and evaluation. Longevity is this idea of your contribution living beyond the end of the project. So what systems and how have you thought about how your contribution can live on? And then evaluation, what are you going to do along the way to assess whether your plan is working and to tweak your plan if needed? So these are the evaluation criteria, and each criterion is spelled out in more detail in the request for applications overview that you can find on our website. But our independent external reviewers will use these criteria to evaluate your projects. Okay, we have a question. It says, is it possible to see what projects were funded in the past? And the answer from Riley is yes, we will give a brief summary of a few of our grantees at the end. So thank you for that, Mara and for Riley. We'll go to the next slide. So what does the application consist of? Here are the components. First, we have your eligibility information. As Riley noted earlier, this opportunity is open to tribal colleges and universities or 501c3s controlled by and led by tribal colleges and universities. We ask for geographic information just to know where you're at and what community you're working with. Then we get into your proposal. You'll give us your narrative, tell us the story of your vision and your contribution, your team. Then you give us your plan. This is where you say, I'm going to have these activities done by January 2025. And then you give us your budget information. We're going to talk more about budget in the next few slides, but the important thing to note is that we are looking to make 6 grants for $200,000 each. And so you would lay out how you would spend that $200,000 for your project. Then we ask for your governing body information and financial information. And then finally, a cover letter from the lead designee at your tribal college or university who says that they support this project and that if you're awarded, that you will be able to carry it out. Okay, next. A few notes on the budget. CEF's indirect limit is set at 15%, and we are not able to make any exceptions, even for folks who have a negotiated rate with the federal government at a higher level. Our indirect is on personnel and direct costs. If you have any intermediary costs, which would be scholarships or re-grants, those would be excluded from the indirect calculation. Happy to get into that in more detail if we have questions. Applicants must follow the budget guidelines and use our required templates. We have a Excel spreadsheet that you can download on the website that you must use to build your budget so that we can best evaluate them. And then applicants must create a budget for an even $200,000. And we know it can be tough sometimes to round up. So we've, in our budget guidelines, given some leeway to allow you to round up to that even 200,000. Next. Here's a sample budget for New Day Tribal College. And we have personnel costs for a traditional foods manager, and we put in how much it is for the first year and the second year. We include fringe there and a 3% raise. So please think about all of these calculations as you're thinking about the personnel you will support. And then we have a few other categories in direct costs. Those are events, which are events that you will host and plan, but also events that you will attend that others are hosting and planning. Travel, either in the travel for your personnel to go and do the project or travel for your participants to engage with your material. We have supplies and equipment, and the difference here is supplies is anything up to $5,000. If it is going to be consumed in the course of the project, that's a supply. Anything greater than $5,000 is counting as equipment or capital expenditure. And some examples from previous years is we have equipment like a boat that would be more than $5,000, but was really important to do the Cultural Foodways project. Okay, we have contract and consultant. These are people who don't work for your tribal college or university, but who are important to implementing your plan, and you can add them here. We have stipend and honoraria. These are folks who are going to be sharing their knowledge or their wisdom with you, but not as a profession or not as a contractor. We see this a lot for learners, so students who are engaging, or for elders or knowledge keepers who are sharing. And then we have printing and publications and other for things that don't clearly fit in one of these previous categories. I mentioned intermediary funds before. Probably the most popular one would be a scholarship. If you're hoping to give scholarships to folks in your community, that would be under intermediary funds. And then you have to tell us a little bit about your experience running a scholarship program. And then finally, direct costs, which we talked about being 15% of personnel indirect. Miscellaneous to equal target, there's where we give some leeway for you to make sure that the grand total is 200,000. So I'm going to open this question. Is there a match requirement? Thank you, Emily. There is no match requirement, so you do not have to match this. Also, this is private funding. This is not federal funding. And if you have ongoing activities that this could complement, that would be a good way to leverage these funds. Okay, we have a question from Eduardo. Can you email us this presentation? Eduardo, if you would email us at grants@Sovereign Equity Fund, then we can respond with a link to this. We also have this presentation available on our website for anybody to access, and the recording from today will be loaded onto our website by the end of the week. So thank you for that. Okay, so this is a sample budget that you can access, and you can let us know if you have any questions while you're going through your own budgets. We're happy to help with the format or trying to. Okay, we have a message that says, can you share the link for where it's located on your website in the chat? We sure will. Thank you for that. Riley, while we're locating that link, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, we'll give that to Riley, and I will put the link in the chat.
I realized I was on mute. Thanks, Carly, for that, and thank you for the detailed overview of the budget section. If you guys have any further questions on that, please again reach out to us at grants@sovereignequityfund.org, and we can go over any of that, re-go over anything Carly's gone over today. Some important deadlines that we wanted to know. The Cultural Foodways RFA closes July 1st, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Please note the Central Time note there. We encourage you to get on our Found It software or granting software and start your application anytime before then. We find it easier to see what you need to submit before the deadline. Excuse me, I'm just not thinking today. But we encourage you to get on there, see what needs to be submitted, what our requirements are. The checklist is also on the application, so we encourage you to get started on that before the July 1st deadline. Everything you submit will be saved and you can continue it at a later date. A little reminder here, there's no opportunity to edit after that application deadline. So again, please start early, submit early. I know Sovereign Equity Fund uses the same software as Native American Agriculture Fund. And when people are trying to submit right at the deadline, it can get bogged down a little bit. So the earlier submit, the better for us and for you and for our software. So on to our next slide. So this is the Found It application that I was talking about. So if you have submitted an application with the Native American Agriculture Fund, it does not transfer over to the Sovereign Equity Fund's website. So you will need to create a new account. You can create a new account with this button, as you see, and we'll have to submit your information again if you have an account before. Here is our website. Excuse me. This is the link directly to the Cultural Foodways Fund page. But again, if you just do sovereignequityfund.org and click this tab here, this will bring you right to our website that has the RFA overview, our budget templates, our budget overview, application overview, the link to apply, the link to the Found It website. So everything and anything is on our website. We don't keep anything. So even if you haven't started the application yet, you can see our budget templates and things like that. So please visit our website for more information. Our past webinars are also on there. We have a detailed frequently asked questions list as well. So again, please give our website a visit.
Riley, before you give some examples, I'll just answer a question in the chat. It says, is there any required grant reporting after grants are awarded / implemented? Yes, well, we have a note on this in our RFA overview. We have quarterly update reports, which are a quick way for you to let us know what's going on for each of the 3-month segments of your grant. And then we have a more detailed annual and final report. This includes budget information, so telling us what you've spent so far, and then also impact, like how many people were at your workshop, or how, if you're providing supplies for people to do things, just an accounting of that. So if you're interested in knowing more about what the reporting looks like before applying, please send us an email and we'd be happy to give more detail on that. But let me just repeat, there will be quarterly, so every 3 months, a report, and then annual and final. Okay, we have another question. Any technical assistance available if needed? Yes, we have folks available to help with the particulars of your project in terms of providing information or looking for other ways to support. If you have a more specific question about technical assistance, let us know. We are working with our first 6 grantees to understand what they need and what would be helpful for them. We gather them at regular intervals to talk with each other and to share learnings and ideas of how this information can spread across the TCU network. Okay. Thank you. Riley, back to you to give us an overview of some of our previous grantees.
Awesome. Thank you for answering those, Carly. So yes, this goes back to the question from earlier. If we can give any examples of some of the 2023 grantees. So here's just 3 of our 6 2023 Cultural Foodways grantees. Fort Peck Community College, their project entails providing events for all ages. That includes traditional and modern fishing, hunting, gathering, and agriculture events. So they've hosted a fish camp already. They're planning to host an elk and buffalo camp later this fall. Those will be two separate camps. Sorry, that sounded like they were included in one. But they will also be doing archery workshops. They're starting a podcast series, which we just met with them this morning actually, and should be coming out in the next couple weeks. So look out for that if you're interested. Little promotion for them there. And then they've also included winter storytelling in their project. So like we've mentioned, we leave arts and humanities and agriculture terms up to you guys. So for them, the fishing, the hunting, the gathering, they've done plant walks. That's all in their terms of agriculture. But in the arts humanities side, they're learning how to make traditional bow and arrows, but also using the modern bows. And then the podcast series kind of goes into the arts humanities as well, and then the storytelling. A big portion of their project is also to build a greenhouse and then have a spring planting ceremony. So again, agriculture and then tying the arts and humanities into that. And to kind of bring a traditional twist to it, they've recruited knowledge keepers to participate in their activities to incorporate that. We have a question. What is the name of the podcast? He didn't give a name yet. They're still kind of in the last steps of producing it. That's why they're not really sure when it's out yet, but it'll be they hope to post it on YouTube and then the Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, those platforms. It'll be strictly audio. It won't be any video content. Okay, so our next grantee that we wanted to highlight was Le Corderet Ojibwe University. Their project entails establishing a community in traditional Ojibwe harvest seasons again. So their project is to bring families through two years of their 3 seasons: wild rice, maple sugar, and spearing and netting harvest. So they will participate through those 2 years. They will be doing the traditional harvest that has been passed down to their community members. But not only will they be harvesting, but they'll be building all of their own equipment. So that kind of ties into that arts and humanities side as well as traditional and agriculture. So that's the big portion of their project. Okay, so here's a question and answer. Do proposed projects have to be located on campus, or can we implement the work off campus? Our college does work throughout our homelands and not just on campus. So yes, we do encourage you to work with your students as well as your community members. So we have College of Menominee Nation actually is our next grantee, and they are doing some work off their campus as well. Okay, on to College of Menominee Nation. So their project is called the 13 Moons Project, and it weaves together Menominee foods, materials, and spiritual culture through workshops that are celebrating the rhythms of traditional activities throughout the year. So they are holding workshops all throughout the year, like I said, for not only their students, but also their community members, and they're encouraging their community members to participate as well as present in those workshops. So they've already had workshops that are for storytelling, moccasin making, just different things like that. And then their hope in the impact of their project is to improve cultural and community connections in their area. So that kind of goes back to that question as well. Excuse me. That is all we had for those grantees. Okay, this is a section again. If you guys have any questions, please submit them in the chat box. We're more than willing to answer anything and everything, so please put those in there. Again, little side note here, same slide from before, put them in that questions box or in the chat. Here is our email and our phone number. So again, please reach out to us for anything technical assistance wise or any questions you have after this webinar. And then our phone number as well. Carly, did you have anything else?
Thank you, Riley. And thank you to all those who've been engaging with us already. We have a question. Does collaborating with federal, state, and local agencies increase points on your rating process? So we don't have a specific evaluation criterion for that. But if it makes sense in the context of your project and you can tell that narrative, then I think our reviewers will take that into account. We're always a fan of collaboration, whether that's with other TCUs or with community nonprofits in your area or federal, state, local agencies. So whoever is meaningful to make your contribution. And I just want to emphasize, as Riley has talked about already, that this opportunity is to combine two ideas, which is native food and agriculture and arts and humanities. And so the most compelling applications are going to be those that make a really strong case as to how they're advancing the arts and humanities components of native food and agriculture. In our overview and in our application, we have a really extensive list of what we think of as arts and humanities. And we're also open for you to describe that for yourself. But that ranges from history and anthropology all the way to art, like physically making art, visual art, or pottery, or storytelling. Just runs the gamut. But we're really excited to see how you can support native food and agriculture through arts and humanities. Do we have any other questions or comments? We just want to note that we have one more webinar scheduled here for Tuesday, June 18th at the same time, 2 p.m. Central. And in this webinar, we will open it for questions right away. Okay, so the first three, we went through the PowerPoint slide, but in this fourth one, we're really interested in folks who have started their application and maybe have specific questions, and that's the time for us to be available for you as a resource. I just want to emphasize what Riley said before. There's no drawback to creating an application, just starting it. Even if you're not sure if you're going to complete it, it takes just a few minutes to create a profile in our Founded system and to look at the application. It's really great to start that early so that we can address any potential technical issues and so that you're not rushed at the end. Okay, so we're happy to answer some more questions, but if you got the information that you were looking for, we appreciate your time with us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in the Cultural Foodways Fund. We really do hope you'll find the time to submit an application. Riley, would you go back to the slide with your email and phone number? Please reach out. Riley would be happy to connect with you. We can't brainstorm ideas for your project, but if you bring in an idea to us, then we can help you put it into the system. You can also visit our website to see about our other 3 grantees. Riley highlighted 3 of them here, but we have 6 total from last year. Okay, so we'll just wait one more minute and see if we have any questions that come through. Otherwise, we hope you have a wonderful day. And please continue to think about applying for the Cultural Foodways Fund.
Thank you all for attending. Just wanted to say that before everybody hops off.
Yeah, and thank you, Riley, for leading us through the slides. Okay, folks, we're gonna close it down. You can always reach us here. Thank you for your time. Y'all take care.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.